Hello and welcome to Mystery Us. I'm Tony Pratt, your host for Mystery Us, and we have some really intriguing guests on the program today. Brett and Gina Oldham of Halo Paranormal. Welcome, Brett and Gina.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
How you guys doing today?
Great.
Doing great.
All right. Now, you guys started out as researchers, really, when you were teenagers, individually, and then you came together to form Halo Paranormal. You do a wide range of paranormal topics that you investigate, but your bread and butter, or you're widely known for doing the audio recordings of ghosts with the electronic voice phenomena known as EVPs, and also spirit box communication. So just kind of give us an overview of Halo Paranormal and how do you record ghosts?
Halo pretty much encompasses not just ghost research, but we do cryptozoology, we do UFO-related subjects, especially alien abduction. We lean toward that a lot. Interview a lot of people that's experiencing that type of phenomena, and the EVP, the electronic voice phenomena, which, if no one knows, is basically just the capturing of ghost or spirit voices on a recorder. And the spirit box is a controversial mode of communication for spirit communication.
Right.
And when we first got into that aspect of it, we were a little skeptical as well, but we've come to full 180 on that, and we're big advocates of it, and we've just got a ton of evidence from that. So we do sometimes some of our investigations relies on that more than anything.
Right.
You know, and so we just kind of got a reputation for doing that and for capturing a lot of EVPs when we go out on a location.
And for the people that don't know, when we say spirit box, it's just a little AM, FM radio that you would pick up at Radio Shack, and the scan button is disabled, so it's constantly scanning through the channels. And what happens is the spirits kind of latch onto a frequency, and their voices will come through as it's scanning through the channels.
And I guess it's controversial. People think, oh, it's just the garbled voices of whatever's on the radio, but they're pretty clear in a lot of cases. I mean, they're not all perfectly clear, but in a lot of cases, they're pretty clear sentences and paragraphs. And
well, it goes way back. The first person who ever got evidence like that was actually Nikola Tesla, the famous scientist.
Right.
And he came out publicly and stated that he had contacted what he felt were spirits, and he went so far as even saying that he believed that he was receiving alien contact.
Right.
So you're talking a mind like Nikola Tesla, you know, one of the greatest minds that ever came around. And Thomas Edison came out in Scientific American magazine, I think it was in the 1920s, and stated that he was working on a device also to communicate with the dead.
Right.
So there's some prominent scientists that all the way back from the 20s that were behind this concept of spirit communication. And then it kind of died out for a while, and then there was a guy named Frederick Jurgensen, who in I believe it was 1959, he was a filmmaker, and he was out back in the old days. They had that, when they had audio on a film, they had to go out, they wanted bird sounds, they had to go out in the woods and get actual bird sounds and put them in your film. Well, he was doing that when he was playing back the tape. He heard what he thought was his deceased father speaking to him.
Wow.
And so he went out and did it again, and then he got his deceased wife. And he's known as pretty much as the father of EVP. That's when regular EVP started. He got together, he wrote a book about it, and later there was a Latvian psychologist named Konstantin Radava who had read this book, and he got a hold of Jurgensen, and they started doing the ITC, which is what is any kind of spirit communication through an electronic device of any kind, because it doesn't just happen with these disengaged radio. There's stories of people getting cell phones, just like in the Poltergeist movie, you know, coming through the white noise of the TV. You know, we've taken reports like that.
Yeah, my dad recently passed on May 8th, and he was a singer, and one of his songs started playing on the computer, but there was no programs open. You know,
there you
so
go.
that was kind of interesting.
That's ITC. ICTC stands for intertransmural communication, and it's basically just spirit communication through any form of electronic device.
Right.
I don't think anybody really knows exactly how they're able to manipulate and use the energy to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, are these spirits all ghosts? Is this dead people, living challenged folks? I mean, what is the?
That's good. Pretty much. We have had stuff come through that said it was entities, clearly just stated, I am an entity. Mm-hmm. Maybe never have been incarnated in physical form.
Right.
So, and it is dimensional, so that's highly possible that kind of thing can
When
happen.
they say disembodied spirits, does that mean they don't have a head, or are they just a head?
It doesn't have a body.
Doesn't have a body. They lost their body. So it's just like a head floating around type of.
No, it just means that they're just an energy form.
Right.
And you know, when people take photos of ghosts and they're like, well, you know, why do they have clothes on everything? Well, everything's energy. Energy can't be destroyed. You know, death is nothing but a transition, and that energy just takes a new form. And we believe that you can use your thought, which is also energy, when you're on the other side. And you know, unless the spirit world is a bunch of nudists, which doesn't make sense, that you would want to be the same as you were in this plane of existence. And so that's when people photograph a lot of spirits. You know, they're clothed, and everything is energy, even clothing. You know, so.
So does everyone become a spirit when they pass on? I mean, do they stay on the earth for a while, or do they just? Some of them do, some don't.
Well, some do stay here because they're stuck, and others pass on, and we call those spirits.
Right.
And the ones that are stuck, we refer to them as ghosts. Spirits, we found that they pass over, but they can also come back and visit. It's almost like, you know, they can come and go as they please.
And what causes the ones that don't pass over to get stuck here?
Well, we think it's, you know, a combination of things. They could be just scared to move on. You know, they don't know what's going to be waiting for them.
Right.
They can also be attached to a person, be attached to an object. They're just not ready to let go of, you know, the physical.
So they might
unfinished
be
business. You know, something that maybe they were murdered, and they want to make sure that they have justice before they move on. Some people, especially in the case of children, they don't even realize what's happened to them a lot of times. Or if somebody dies suddenly in an accident, in a case like that, they're confused. I mean, we ran into that quite a bit.
And so they really don't have the total consciousness that they had before. They're just kind of limited in their perception and just kind of wandering aimlessly.
I think, you know, from what we've gathered, especially if someone has died traumatically and suddenly, I think they can be very confused.
Right.
Don't you think?
Yeah, yeah, and fear just plays into it in a big scale, because it's the they feel, I think they feel safe, like, but they know even if they realize that they've passed into another dimension.
Yeah.
It just feels safe, and they don't know that, you know, everybody fears the unknown, and and it's sort of like that, so they just kind of play it safe and stay where they're at and go to somewhere familiar, whether it's where they went to school, maybe even sometimes, like, you know, where they died at. In the case of, like, hospitals are really known for being haunted places, and we could definitely attest to that. You know, we've investigated 4 times at hospitals, and there's just enormous amount of activity.
Speaking of haunted places, that's part of the title of Brad Steiger's book, Real Ghosts, Restless Spirits, and Haunted Places, and that's coming out September 1st, and you guys have a bunch of articles that are going to be in that book. What are those articles about?
They're a combination. We did a UFO abduction article. We did a Bigfoot article. And I think the other 2 or 3 are pretty much all, like, just ghost-related things. And actually one of the photos that we brought for you is going to be, that story's in there in that photo.
Now, I'm always asking off-the-wall questions. Do Bigfoots, or have you heard any reports yourself of Bigfoots being mistaken for ghosts or haunting activity,
Clifton.
Bigfoot activity?
That's true. We were on an investigation, and it was supposed to be a haunting investigation. And, you know, they kept saying all these things that they could hear a certain time every night, wood knocking. And, you know, they thought, well, you know, could this be something residual, or somebody was, you know, chopping with an axe? And the more and more that they were telling us, I kept thinking they're describing Bigfoot activity.
And the screams.
And the screams, and you know, the guy was like, you know, I hear these screams, and it's like a woman's being murdered, you know, and she's screaming bloody murder. And I was thinking again, you know, Bigfoot. And the more that we asked them questions and talked to them, that's actually what it was. And I forget the young man's name, but he actually had a sighting when he was out hunting with his buddies.
Now, when you say residual, you're talking about residual energies. Explain that.
It's like a recording almost in time, and it will happen continually, maybe at a certain time of day, or even a certain time of month, or a certain time of year, depends on when this incident happened. It's not like you get intelligent responses. It's just something that happened at a point in time and is kind of stuck in time and keeps repeating itself.
So it's not really interactive. It's just kind of a movie that you can watch and come back a little while later and watch it again.
Keeps repeating.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've heard some stories from several people about visiting some of the local battlefields and seeing some action and actually seeing a whole battle in some cases, and then it started back at the beginning and repeated again.
It's sort of an imprint of strong emotional. If it's usually related around something that's really has a strong emotional tie to it.
Right, which war would, you know, you're about to get killed, you're definitely making an imprint. You're really...
Oh, absolutely. This area, all of Middle Tennessee, actually Tennessee, and a lot of places we went in Tennessee, we've ran into different soldiers, you know, whether sometimes residual, sometimes intelligent. I mean, you know, they're not just repeating; they're actually haunting.
Yeah.
So
it is interactive. Now, recently you were on a television program in Bulgaria. How does one get on a Bulgarian TV program? And it was a primetime show for Bulgaria.
A couple of years ago, we received an email from a lady. She said her name was Sofia Savela. And she went on to say that she had a show in Bulgaria, and it was called The New Files. And we think that she saw our page on MySpace at the time. We had some evidence and things like that on there. She was really impressed with me and Brett, and number one, because we were married, and just that we handle all types of paranormal things. She referred to us as like Scully and Mulder, and she always does that. But we've been on her show. She interviewed us once, and she has actually highlighted our evidence twice on her show now. And it's funny when she does like introduce us. Of course, you know, we've watched the program online. You can't understand a word she says unless she says her name. But she plays the X-Files theme song when she shows our stuff. So she was very knowledgeable.
very knowledgeable.
It was one of the hardest probably interviews that we've ever done, and we did that via Skype. So
is the program normally about paranormal stuff? Her show?
Yes.
Okay, so it is on topic, but it's but see, that's the difference between Bulgaria. I mean, we don't have a network primetime shows about paranormal. I mean, we got a lot of them on cable.
Yeah,
but
we've told her. I mean, if a show like that, or even if she had her show here, it would just be an enormous success. I mean, she's already a top show over there, but it's amazing that with all the ghost shows that we have here, and now even like with the Bigfoot shows are coming around, and even UFO hunters for a while, that there isn't a show out there like that.
And she covers all topics.
Sure. And speaking of all topics, you've written articles for Bigfoot newsletters, published interviews, and Alternative Perceptions magazine, which is a magazine published by Brent Rains, a friend of ours, mutual friend. But you've done interviews and articles of top names in the paranormal field, like John Lear, and also Travis Walton, who's the movie Fire. Is it Fire from the Sky?
Fire in the Sky.
Fire in the Sky. Yeah, Travis Walton. He's a well-known abductee, and pretty credible, as far as I know.
He's very credible. We talked a lot off the record that we didn't release to the public, and he's very honest, very sincere guy. And I mean, he's taken 4 or 5 different lie detector tests, and I don't. People just keep trying to dispel what he was saying and what happened to him. And to his knowledge, I mean, it was only just one event, but
all the guys that were with him also took lie detector tests, and it was from one of the top lie detector examiners in the nation. So it probably wasn't a flawed test. You know?
And in Travis's case, I mean, he was gone for days, which is a very unusual abduction scenario to happen.
Yeah.
So that makes his case pretty unique, and he's suffered quite a bit from it. I mean, when you talk to him off the record, I mean, he'll just tell you flat out that he does wish it never happened to him, even though he's worldwide known and everything. He really still wishes it had never happened.
Yeah, it would. Just like it's just so much constant hassle, or that's just what you're known for. That's what everybody's addressing you for, and you just anything's going to get old after a while.
Yeah, and John Lear is from the Learjet family, and John himself, at the time, years ago, I'm sure it probably is still holding up, but he had 21 world aviation records, so he's quite a pilot himself, and he. When I used to live in Las Vegas, and John lives in Las Vegas, and he started doing lectures out there. He got interested in UFOs and started kind of searching for what the real truth was. As you know, as a UFO researcher, a lot of disinformation out there, and it's a rough field to separate the fact from fiction. And John really went into it with guns a-blazing, and he started doing lectures. And I met him at one of the lectures, started helping him actually, and we became friends, and he invited me up to his place quite often, and I was getting privy to a lot of his information that he was getting, and we just hit it off. I learned a lot from him. I know he's a controversial figure. He has some, and he's always has been, and he kind of dropped out of it for a while, but. I kind of wanted, recently, I wanted to interview him because I hadn't talked to him in several years, and just to see where he was at with things, and so I called him up, and he agreed for the interview. He's a very gracious, humble man, and gave a great interview, and it not only was helped the Alternate Perceptions magazine, but it made it to like the website of Coast to Coast, and it blew up, and people were picking it up like all over the world. So John's a pretty well-known figure.
Coast to Coast, for any listeners that don't know, most of my regular listeners would, is a show formerly with Art Bell, now with George Norrie, and I think Art does do some interview shows, and they have several different hosts, but it's a paranormal, it's the #1 late night radio show in America, and maybe the world, I don't know.
Yeah, I think these,
but it's huge.
Hundreds of affiliates.
Yeah, and didn't you have a connection with one of the famous UFO guys that used to work at Area 51, Bob Lazar?
Well, Bob Lazar, John actually, Bob Lazar's story broke through John, and John knew George Knapp, who was a news reporter there in Las Vegas. And I've known George. I met George a couple times. A really good, thorough journalist, has an impeccable reputation, and they broke that whole story. And as I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the whole Area 51 Bob Lazar thing, and it's a lot of kind of shows you like how the UFO field can turn on you, because that's what happened to Bob Lazar. But to this day, I mean, when I interviewed John, I asked him about about if he still talked to Bob Lazar, and he said that he did, and to this day he still stands behind him and still believes the
Right,
story.
and Bob Lazar's basic story is that he worked at Area 51 and he was privy to seeing some craft that were pretty much
getting back engineered, basically.
One of them he called the sport model, that was your basic disc shape, and those were either back engineered craft that we had found downed alien craft and tried to figure out and build our own, or it was just an actual craft that we obtained somehow.
Yeah, and or a deal that we made way
to
back.
Share technology.
Yeah, so that's out there as well.
Right. Yeah, a lot of the, I mean, the book, the Day After Roswell, obviously had Colonel Philip Corso talking about how they had this technology that they figured out from the craft, and they gave it to different industries. They just told them it was something they were working on, top secret projects, but they didn't tell them where it came from, and whether they knew or not actually where it came from, I don't know. I haven't really heard any specifics on that. Now, as far as these, okay, before we start talking about the EVPs, I want to talk about photos, because you've got some interesting photos too. One of them is very specific to Nashville. It's taken from Printer's Alley. Now, what's in that photo, and what's that about? And we'll show this stuff, and I'll edit this into the show so that everybody can see it. Just tell us what the Printer's Alley.
Yeah. Gene and I were downtown taking pictures for a different project that we were working for, unrelated to the paranormal, and we had heard the stories about the Rainbow Room. Skull Skullman, the old Hee-Haw character, for anybody that's been in this area for a while probably knows who that is, and even knows about the Rainbow Room. And he got murdered in there, and we'd heard downtown is just full of various lore about the ghost and this story and that story. So we're walking back to our car, and we're just like, well, hey, let's just cut down Printer's Alley and take a few shots and everything. And at that time, there was a lot of businesses that were closed down. In fact, I provided a second picture that we took that shows the alley.
It looked like an alley.
Yeah. There was just no one around. And in fact, we were a little bit worried walking down there that we were going to get mugged or something, because it was just so silent, and you know, who knows what was lurking in the shadows. And we just stayed there maybe 10 minutes and took a few shots outside the entrance to the club, and Gina posed a couple times, and it wasn't really all that serious.
Yeah.
Because we really didn't expect to capture anything, and that's usually when you do capture something in the paranormal, you know, most of the things that happen, it's usually a fluke. And so we got home, and I don't know, what was it, a day or two later, we were just going through the pictures or something, and I noticed this strange metallic object, molten metal looking thing at the forefront of the picture. We couldn't figure out what it was. I mean, we know from doing paranormal work that you got to watch zippers and camera cords, and you know, a lot of people think they caught a ghost, and they really just took a picture of the camera cord because it's this light flaring off it, that type of thing like that. So we know better than all that, so we knew it wasn't anything like that. And so I brightened the picture up just to kind of get a better look, and when I did, there was actually 2 ghosts in the picture, full body apparitions. Completely, we didn't see them with our naked eye. They seemed to be oblivious to us, and it was almost like we wrote. This is one of the ones that's in Brad's book, but we called it a moment in time when we wrote the article about it, because it was almost like just capturing a certain, like some kind of time anomaly, because they seemed completely unaware of us. Yeah. And there's a lady, as you will see your audience will see in the picture, that has her hair pulled back in a bun, and she seems to be carrying a blanket or a shawl on her left arm. Right. And she's walking down the alley and leaning or standing close to the wall. Looks like a soldier, you know, in uniform. So we were pretty shocked to find that. And
is he a Confederate or a Union soldier?
I'm not sure
or is he a modern soldier?
No, he's Civil War. He looked like a Civil War uniform, and she was certainly dressed. You know, we joke about that
Period.
with people. It's like, yeah, well, we know people think we're a bunch of hillbillies here, but we still don't go around dressing like the 1800s, you know, so this wasn't anybody in the alley.
Sure.
And I'm glad that we did take a picture of the alley itself, just to show that it was there was just no humans around anywhere. You know, we were just us.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting shot. I mean, to catch 2 full-body apparitions like that, and we still to this day have no explanation for the metallic object that's in it.
Right. Now, you also have a picture of a ghost of a little boy, and there's other people in the picture, and they look solid, but the little boy looks translucent, or he looks like a ghost. I mean,
that was taken at the Men's Hotel in Park City, Kentucky. We went there probably about a year ago, and we were invited by another group. Their name is Wolfpack Paranormal, which they're good friends of ours. These were just preliminary photos, and Brett was just walking around. It wasn't even dark yet, but we weren't using a flash or anything like that because we didn't have to at that time. There was a guy in the photo, and he's actually setting up. You'll see him. He's got, you know, cords, and he's unwinding the cords. And behind him is a little boy, and you know, he's very much solid, but at the same time, you can see through him.
right.
And you know, again, like Brett said, it's like when you least expect it. We weren't really even investigating at that time. We were just taking preliminaries. So
Yeah, it's a clear picture. I mean, it doesn't look like mist or anything. It looks like a photograph of somebody.
And it looks like a little boy. And this hotel was once a school for boys. I mean, it was a multitude of things in its time, but you know, for it to be a school for boys at one time, and probably back in the 40s and 50s, and this little boy looks very much dressed like you know, a kid at that time, or a little boy at that time would be dressed. So we were excited and pretty shocked.
Yeah.
Because there was no, of course, we don't ever investigate with children, but there was absolutely, you know, no children there at all.
Right.
So
The main thing you do is audio, though. You get the EVPs. What are some of the most interesting or compelling, or I mean, I know it's hard to judge what's most important or least important. You guys capture so much evidence. It's just you can't. You told me you were backed up 4 months even trying to look
Analyze
at it.
Yeah. Well, the full voice stuff is meaning like we're getting spirit contact that sounds almost as loud as we're talking right now. A lot of times, even sometimes on some of the shows that are on these ghost shows and stuff, you'll see, like, you know, they'll get really excited if they catch 2 or 3 EVPs on a overnight
really
investigation,
scratchy, kind of fuzzy
whispery,
sound.
you know, and that's still good evidence. But when you capture full voice, it's, you know, they have a lot of strong energy to draw from, and it's really hard to dispute, for anybody to dispute. See, EVPs will fall within a certain frequency too, and you can run them through frequency analysis and show that it's not a human voice. Sometimes it will overlap. I mean, there is some leeway in that, but I don't know, to pick, like, we've got thousands of them.